Beginning our Daf Mesech Megillah Daf Chav Ches. Begin on the bottom of Chav Zayin based on the bottom line of the Yomid. We're in the middle of discussing that the students asked the Rebbe, "V'maharach the Yomim." They want to put out in the weekly V'shtayt the Rebbe Gezogt as Harichis Yomim came from them. That's why Gemara continues. Ashir is close by Bekazich and Cheskel. Turning to the Avachem Bisham joining today's Daf. Some of this is discussing today's Daf are V'maharach the Yom, like we said, about different Tanoim and Merom, about why they merited to live a long life. But they can see is various activities that are forbidden in the shul. Basically, it's a shechor, the halachas of a shul that falls into ruin. But they can see bubble al tanai haison that by the shuls and bubble they were built in condition that they, and that's actually a lot of the halachas of our common shuls that it's built with a stipulation. What's the halacha if someone wants to enter in the shul to call someone a well-known halacha? What does a person do in those situations? Because you're not supposed to go in for no reason. What do you do to ameliorate that situation? So we begin the current daf. Chav Zayin obeys the bottom line of the Amid. Shol Talmidim is Preda. The students asked for Preda b'maharach yom. What did you merit a long life? So Taisus asks. It's interesting. He says a whole list of things that he did that he thinks he merited a long life. Says, what are you talking about? Everyone knows Reb Preda. Every little kid knows the story that this nudnik of a kid he couldn't learn and he taught him the whole time and he says, I thought every time I knew you're going to leave, so I couldn't concentrate, and he taught him another 400 times. So what do you mean? So the Gemara brings an Erevin that's why he merited to live a long life. So Tais says, yeah, but in the beginning he didn't know that until he saw at the end that he actually lived that long, that he lived that amount of years. So he didn't know that was going to be what it was. It sounds like only retroactive did he realize, oh, that was what it was because of that thing. So this was before he was that old. Some of them he told them very differently. He says, "Miyoma in my days, look kadmani odom beis hamedrash. No one ever came before me to the beis hamedrash. So he was the first one."
Yeah, but how come his talmidim didn't know about Vasco?
It sounds like no one knew because they didn't like Tais says the Mikol Yodikin adlib saif shadash achayik kokach. Because he didn't live that age yet, so he didn't know that's why. Meaning, if he ends up living that amount of time, the 400 years, then it's like okay, it's obvious that's what that's what it is. But until that point, even he didn't know, no one knew. So one reason is he says because no one came before me to the Beis Medrash, and there's a continued type of Chavches Maral v'lim berachti. Said I didn't make a bracha by a suda lefnei koyin, because the Gemara says in Gindaf Netes on the base of Kiddashtoi, which is the Chol Davish Begdusha. The kohen has to be the first one to open, has to be the first one to make the bracha. And I never ate from an animal that the Kahana gifts, which really every animal that's slaughtered, the Zraya, the foreleg, the Chayayim, the Keva, the Moa, and the jaw, those things are given to a kohen, which really the Amar Yitzchak says, and it says, you're not eat from an animal, that the gifts were not given yet. Now, he says, anyone who eats from an animal that the trumos of the animal were not given to the kohen yet, it's like as if he ate tevel, which is like untaved produce. However, the Allah is not like him, so really, technically, it's not so problematic. But he was careful in these things, and therefore he merited a long life. Says Gemara, one of the things he said, says, I didn't make a bracha before a kohen. The kohen first. Says Gemara, you say, is that really praiseworthy? If you have a Talmid Chacham, you have the Ruv, and someone makes the bracha before him, by the Kiddush, I'm making Kiddush for the Ruv. I feel like Kohen Gadol Am Haaretz. Even if he's a Kohen Gadol, but he's an Am Haaretz, that Talmid Chacham is Chayiv Misa for letting someone else make Kiddush before him. Why? Hashem says the pasuk in Mishlei, Kol Mesanai, all who hate me, says Hashem, over Mavas, they love death. Now, says the Gemara, I'll take him Mesanai, don't read those who hate me, Ela Masni'ai, the ones who cause other people to hate me. What do you mean? If you see a Talmid Chacham, and there's the Grab Am Haaretz, he's taking charge in front of the Ruv, and the Ruv is there with the Ibn says, now, well, I want to grow up to be this? I don't want to be this. I want to be like that Shema guy who walks around, makes Kiddush, and before the Ruv. It's a disgrace. So the Talmid Chacham is responsible not to let that happen. So what are you saying? You lived a long life because you let someone else, the kohen, make a bracha before you? Even if it's a kohen gadol, he's not supposed to go in front of you. So what's this merit? So no, Kikama Ihu, when did he say that he let a kohen make the bracha before him? Is b'shavin, when they're on equal stature. Which Taisus says it doesn't really mean precisely equal. Rather means to say, as long as the kohen was epis at Talmid Chacham, but it wasn't as chashuv as the Rav, as the Preda, so then that's what he was taking, credit for, that he let that other Talmid Chacham go first. This discusses like at which times do we say that you go before the kohen goes before you, if it's a laning on Shabbos or Montegadonishtik and regarding Berch Samazim. So Balkapanim, that's what he was talking. He was talking when it wasn't Amaretz, right? But Amaretz, he would not let the kohen go first. We're talking about Bista kohen. You guys, you make the bracha. Now, continuing with the next Talmid Chacham, the students asked Rabbi Nachman ben Akana, why did you live? Why did you marry to live a long life? And you see, people want to live, not like today. Some people don't want to live anymore. No, they want to know how you lived a long life. He said to them, in my life, I never got honor through another person's disgrace, which I was going to explain shortly what that means. Never went onto my bed, the curse of my friend. I mean, sometimes the person goes to bed and says, yachts this guy or whatever. No, he never went to sleep with cursing his friend. And you see, and I was someone that was, I looked away, I was forgiving of my money. So the Gemara explains what these items are. What does it mean, what does it mean I never got honor in my friend's disgrace? The Gemara brings a story to illustrate that. There's a story with Rav Huna, the Dori Moda Kasve. He's carrying a spade on his shoulder. Let's say today, a snowy day like today, the roof is coming out with a shovel. And also Rav Chana bar Chaniloi. So Rav Chana bar Chaniloi came along, but Kodari Minei, he took it from him to honor him. And he says, don't worry, I'll carry it for the Rav. I don't want the Rav to have to carry the shovel. So Malay says, look, if it's normal for you that you would carry such a shovel in your city, so Dari, carry it. If not, is Yakuri Ana, for me to get honored with your disgrace, I don't want that. So that's what it means to say that I never got honored with someone else's disgrace. It's someone's doing a schlock job for the Rav and it's disgracing that other person. So that I don't want to do. That's one thing. But also Mitase Kilas Chaveri says this, that I never went on my bed with the curse of my friend is Kihad Mazutra. The Gemara illustrates that also in a story. That with Mazutra, Kiabasol Lepurdi, when he would go lay down on his bed, he would say, Shari le Mare Lechol Man Ditzaran. Says Hashem should forgive anyone who pained me, and people say this in the tefillah before they go to sleep at nighttime, being moichel anyone. Says that's what it means. I never went to sleep cursing anyone. Says forgive, let him deal with it. I don't want to deal with this toxic anger, and that's why he married a long life. And yeah, probably if you get rid of toxic anger, it will help you live a little longer. You see, he says I was also forgiving with my money. What does that mean? As the Amar Malik, the master said, Eiv, the figure from Tanakh, he was forgiving with his money. Where he would leave an extra coin from his money for the storekeeper, and he was about to keep the change, and that's what he did. And again, that's why he made it to live a long life. Continuing with the next Talmid Chacham, Rabbi Kiva asked the great Rabbi Nechunya, Amalei said to him, why did you live a long life? So Asu Gavze. So there was these Sarisin. So Asaris is a eunuch, he can't have children. These are like the servants that came along, and they started hitting Rabbi Kiva, thinking that he was disgusted that Rabbi Nechunya Hagel was living such a long age. He says, as 100 years old. He says, why are you living such a long life? And they started beating him up. So Solig Yosef Adesha the Diklis, Rabbi Kiva went and climbed to the top of a tree. So Amalei, he said to Rabbi Nechunya Hagel, he says, Rabbi, my teacher, he asked him the following question. It says, Imnemer Kevesh, when it talks of, it's Keves. When it says in the Pasuk, as a Keves Echad Tasav Baker, that the one lamb you should do in the morning that's a Karmen Tamid Shel Shachar, and you do it Karmen Tamid Shel Ben Abayim, so Lo Menamei Echad. Why say Keves Echad? Keves is singular. You don't say a singular terminology. You don't say one home, and you go to writing classes, for grammar, right? You say home. Homes is plural, but home, you don't have to say one home, it means one. So why you say Keves Echad? So Amalhu, he said to his servants, Sub Merabanhu, this man is a Talmudic scholar, Shabku, leave him alone. So he was able to come down from the tree. Amalei, he answered me, he says, the reason why it says Echad, one, is Miyuchet Shebedra, means that's the most distinct of the flock, meaning you have to use the highest quality. That's what it says Echad, but not to tell you the singular. So Amalei, he answered to him his question about why he married a long life. He says, Miyamali Kibalti Matanis. He says, I never received any gifts. I never stood on my principle to pay back bad to someone who paid me. And the Vachab money, you see, I was also forgiving with my money. So the Gemara explains why he did these things. Look, what does it mean that he didn't accept any gifts? Like we find the teaching of Rabbi Lazar. When the house of the Nasi, the prince's house, would send him gifts, he wouldn't take it. When they would invite him, he wouldn't go. He said to them, don't you want me to? You don't want me to live? Like he who hates gifts will live. So you're begrudging my life? You want me to take gifts? Now, however, interesting, when they would send him gifts from the house of the Nasi, so he wouldn't take the gift. But when they would invite him as a guest, also he would go. Why? What's the difference? He said, they're getting honored with my coming. So sometimes giving is taking, and sometimes taking is giving. So here he was taking, but it wasn't really taking, it was really giving, because he's actually honoring them by coming. Oh, the Ruv Kim for Kiddush. Oh. He's like, they're not coming. He doesn't need your kebab or whatever. He doesn't need your tequila or whatever. He's coming and he's machta brucha. It's for you, and therefore he did that. Now, the other thing he said, he said, I wasn't oimid on my midas, said I didn't stand on principle. Like Rava says, whoever goes beyond his measurement, he doesn't pay back tit for tat. They remove from him all his averis. Shem says the pasuk in Micha says Hashem is noisy of, and he carries the sin. But and he goes beyond a person's averis, which the way you interpret is lamin noisy oven. For whom is Hashem carries his sins? Lamisha iver al pesha, for someone that goes beyond the sins someone did to him. So he doesn't pay back. He's like, this is Maval Medaisa. Rebbe asked Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg. Rebbe, famous Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, he asked Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg, with what did you merit a long life? Somebody said, Katz the Bechaya, you discussed it with my life. What do you mean? He said, well, what are you asking such a question? Why are you bothered by the fact that I'm living so long? Somebody says, no, Rebbe, Torah, it's Torah. And they need to learn, maybe I can fulfill the same thing also, and I can also live a long life. Somebody said to him, okay, in my days, I never gazed at the figure of a wicked person. And you gotta be careful, you look at all these news items, this mass murderer and this guy and whatever, so you're not supposed to look at a Rasha. Then Megillah says, it's forbidden a person to gaze at the image of the form of a wicked person. Shlomo says the pasuk in Melachim Beis says that Elisha said to Yehoram, who was a wicked person, he says, "Luli pnei Yeshafet, Melech Yehuda ani." If not for the fact that I respect the face of Yeshafet, who is the king of Judah, if I would even look at you, if I would even take a glance at you, because because he's a Rasha, and if he didn't want to look at him. Actually, Rabbi Lazar says, "In chaos, if a person looks at a Rasha, his eyesight gets dimmed." Because in the pasuk when Yitzchak Avinu got older, his eyes got dimmed from seeing. Why? What happened? Why did Yitzchak's eyesight get dimmed? Because his son Esav, he looked at him and he gazed at him, and that actually is what caused his eyesight to dim. Says Gemara, is that really so? That's what caused Yitzchak to become blind, to become poor of eyesight when he got older? Yitzchak says a different reason. He says, it should never be light in your eyes, the curse of even a common man. Because Abimelech killed Sarah, he cursed Sarah Imenu, but this came Bezana, and it was fulfilled in her children. Shlomo says in the pasuk that he told her that here's the 1,000 silver coins for your brother, who is really your husband. Here for you, it's a garment for your eyes. Now, I'll take ksus, don't read it as a garment, el kesiyas, and rather the covering of the eyes, which means to say, like the cataracts, that there's going to be blindness. And therefore, you see, that's what happened to our son, that Yitzchak became blind. So what he's saying is because he looked at his son, Esav the Rasha. Says, no, both of them caused it. It was the combination of both of them. But yeah, a person should not be gazing at it as a wicked person. He said, I lived a long life because I didn't look at a wicked person. Rav Mahachi brings a different source, a pasuk in Mishlei, that says, Se'ez Pnei Rasha, beholding the face of a wicked, lo tov is not good. Now, going back to the story that this was Rebbe asking Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg, so B'shas Pitzei Dasei, when Rebbe was taking leave from Yeshua ben Karcha, so Amalei said to him, Rebbe, my teacher Barcheni, bless me. Amalei said to him, Yiratzin, let it be the will, Shategila Chatzi Yoma, you live to half of my days. So what, Lokula Loi? So what, I shouldn't live only half of your life? You lived a long life, you tell me I should live half of it? Amalai said to him, the ones who come after you, beheme yiru, they should graze like graze animals. Meaning, it's not good for you to live a long life like me. because then your sons are not going to become great leaders, and you're the nasi, and all their days are going to be common men. And you have this Rebbe with his 10 sons, and the Rebbe's already 97, and you have these El Yidden, these guys, and the Hasidim, and what's going to be with them? They're never going to be able to become anything. So therefore, it's not appropriate that you should live so long. You should live half of my life. Now, Avu bar I, Uminyomi bar I, these two sons of I, Chanama once said, tastily, it should come to me reward, the loy stak the bakuti. I didn't look at a guy, kick the stuff a guy. Never up the brilliant, kick of a guy. Chanama, the other one says, tastily, the abdi shutris badikut. He says, I should get reward that I never made a partnership with a guy. Now, and Taisa explains that the reason why he's saying this is that even if, let's say, it wouldn't come to a situation of an oath, because you're not supposed to make, because he might swear by his avodah zarah, his deity, even if, let's say, you say you won't have to swear an oath, which would be permitted by other people, even so, he didn't do that, and therefore he says that it should come to him for reward for having done that. The Gemara continues, the student asked Rabbi Zeir, what did you merit a long life? He said to them, he says, I never got upset in my house. I never walked in front of who's greater than me. And I never thought the words of Torah in filthy alleyways, which you're not supposed to think words of Torah over there. And the Chiddush is, but I never walked down the Amos without thinking Torah. Meaning, a lot of people, they don't think, they also mekayim this halacha, etrachnish lernen, and then the mavazah, etrachvan andere Sachen. Right? But here he never walked down the Amos without thinking and learning. He was constantly saying words of Torah. So it's a Chiddush that he never started learning in those filthy alleyways. And he never went down the Amos without tefillin, I never slept in the Beis Medrash, not laying down to sleep, not dozing off. I was never happy with the downfall of my friend, which is actually one of the things we say in the tefillah when we come to learn that we shouldn't rejoice in our friend's downfall, they shouldn't rejoice in ours. And I never called my friend, and the girsa is b'chachinasai, which means to say that it's like a cheppering type of a nickname, like a little embarrassing. Some say, and the girsa is b'chanichasai, which is even if that nickname is already a family name that they call, he says, even that I didn't call, and therefore I merited to live a long life. Now we're going to look at the next Mishnah, continue on the theme of, which tries to ask what's the ba'oid. It seems to be different than what he said in the previous Mishnah. In the previous Mishnah, he was actually more makel than the Chacham. He said you could sell the shul whatever you want to. So he says going back on a prior halacha, which was a stringency of Rabbi Huda, which actually was, Taisa actually says that actually you have to sell it as a chatzar, and it has to be specific like a chatzar. And stam actually does not come down from its kedusha. And here he's saying another chumrah that Rabbi Huda says regarding a shul. Rabbi Huda regarding the kedusha's basic knesses, another stringency. It's basic knesses shechav. You have a shul that was destroyed. You can't hold levayas. You can't make eulogies there in the shul. You can't twist ropes inside the shul, which Rashi says really it means any work you can't do. It's just because twisting rope, you need to have a big open area, and the ruins of a synagogue is definitely a good big open area. So therefore it's picking that, but it means any work you can't do that. And then personal techniques, you can't spread out over there traps. You want to catch some deer. There's tons of they're eating all our trees. You want to catch some deer, so you put out traps. You can't do that either. You can't spread out on the roof of the old shul Paris to dry up. You can't make it as a shortcut. Shlomek says in the pasuk in Vayikra, Hashem says, I'm going to make desolate, I'm going to destroy your holy places. But what it teaches is that kedushas and avkshein shemem, it's calling it destroyed, but it's calling it mikdashechem because it retains its sanctity even when it's desolate, when it's destroyed. Let's say he starts growing grass over there. You shouldn't tear it out. Because of the sorrow of the soul. Meaning, you leave the grass there so that there should be agmas nefesh. When someone sees it, he should remember. Remember the shul, such a nice shul where it used to be over there. People used to go there. So then they'll daven rachem, and that should come back to its former glory, and therefore leave the grass. That people should have a little bit pain when they see the ruins of the shul. Now, turn about Linda Braisa, elaborating on these halachas. So regarding the shuls, the halacha is that ein noigen ben kalas reish. You cannot act lightheaded in the shul, which all the things we're going to be mentioning now are all kalas reish, which kalas, it means like you're lenient over there. It's like lightweight. It's a light thing. Kaved is from the word of kaved, it's heavy. It's a heavy thing. Yeah, that was heavy. You know, something that takes up space is heavy. So that's what kalas reish is. Lightheaded. You cannot eat over there. And then you cannot drink over there. Which, although Taisa says that in Navi Pesachim, we find that the guests eat and drink over there. Although that's why I make kiddush and shul. It's actually not for the shul. They actually eat in the room right near there, and therefore it's considered b'makam suda. What we do is different, but this is regarding a basic knesset. A basic knesset is not eat, not drink, as a contentum of base, and they ain't nice in bed. And neither can you get, the people that put on their ties. You're not supposed to be getting dressed up in a shul. You can't stroll in the shul. If let's say it's hot outside and the shul is pumping out AC, you're not supposed to come in because of the heat. Let's say it's raining outside, you can't come in because of the rain. You cannot hold a levaya of an individual over there in the shul. Now, what you could do in the shul is you could read chumash, you could learn mishnayos, maspidman, hesped, shalrabim. You could also make a public hesped. Meaning, if a Talmid Chacham dies, where the tzibur has to gather, it's not just like a small levaya or individual. The whole community has to come out for the Talmid Chacham that passed away. So you need a shul is really the most appropriate venue for that because it's a large building. So then you could do it in the shul. Now, Rabbi Yehudi says, when do we say this? Would be yeshuvan. Is only when it's built, b'churbanan, but when it's destroyed, then actually manichin oisan. Then you actually, meaning all these halachas that you said you can't do in a shul, that's only when the shul is built. But when it's destroyed, manichin, then you actually leave it. You let the grass grow over there, and you don't tear the grass up because you want people to have that sorrow of the soul. So the Gemara says, "Asav the karshmayu." Who mentioned anything about grass? In other words, where did Rabbi Yehuda hear the Tanna Kama to say that there are certain things that you have to do that will prevent grass from growing? That he's saying, no, leave the grass. What Tanna Kama wasn't talking about there. He was talking about when the shul is built. And Rabbi Yehuda is saying, you're right, you have to treat it this way. Only when it's settled, but b'chubanan, then you have to leave the grass. What does that mean? So there's words missing. And the way it has to say is like this. The Tanna Kama said, so you can't mistreat a shul. You could come in to learn and to whatever, but nothing else. And it said you have to sweep the shul. You have to do what's called like sprinkling some water to lower the dust, so that grass shouldn't grow. So there's responsibility to have the cleaning crew clean a shul. That Rabbi Yehuda says, when did we say this, that you sweep and you clean a shul is b'yeshuban, is when it's built. So then after that you swept, so then you sprinkle some water and that settles the dust and the grass is not going to grow. But if the shul is destroyed, then you leave the grass to come out. And if grass does come out, you don't tear it up because you want people to be in pain when they see it's all overgrown. That's what he was talking about, because the Tanna Kama was saying that you do have to sweep a shul. Now, related discussion, Amar Basi says, Batik in the siege of Bavel. The shuls in Bavel, which many of our minhagim come from Bavel, like when we start by St. Talamata, there's a meaning of Bavel. So the shuls in Bavel, al-tanahen asuin, they're made on condition that they could do what they want to with the shul, and that's where in halacha we have some of that. Taisa says it's actually only b'churbanan that we're saying they made it with a tanai. And that's only for those in Bavel, because when Mashiach is going to come, the Meher Yemenu says the shul's out of Eretz Yisrael is going to lose its kedusha, which is interesting because we know that idea that it's all going to go to Eretz Yisrael. But those in Eretz Yisrael, he says even b'churbanan they retain their kedusha because Mashiach is going to come and it's going to go right back to what it always used to be. And therefore, this that was saying that you could plant it is like it's meaning meaning that's a kalas rish b'yos and that's agmas nefesh. Therefore, that you can't do even b'churbanan. But we're saying al tanahi nasuyin as if everything else. So interesting. Taisa makes it sound like it's b'churbanan, but there is such a halacha that there are shittas that hold that it's even b'binyan, and that's where a lot of our shuls that we do eat and we do drink and we do have a kiddush and all those different things because it's made al tanai. Now, even so, and you cannot treat it lightheaded. Now, mind you, what does it mean to be lightheaded in the shul? This cheshbainis is making calculations, which again, Taisus here also says that this halacha is talking about when it's built, because when it's destroyed, then you could do all those things that you want to over there. So then what? So if you're talking about when it's built, so what are you talking about cheshbainis? So he says no. You would think that only eating and drinking is really kalas reish. That would be forbidden. but according to Tais, the Chiddush is Cheshboinus, there's not such a Kalas Reish, you would think they would be permitted to saying that no, you're not allowed to even make Cheshboinus in a shul. That's how Tais learns that halacha that is talking about when it's built, then you cannot treat it disrespectfully. But the simple understanding of the Gemara sounds like that. Although you make it al tonight, you could have a kiddush, you could have all these different things. But cheshbainis, that's a kalas reish, and that you can't just be making business deals and going through, okay, how much did I make? Does that? They don't be forbidden. Now, Amr Ravasi says, if you do have a shul where someone makes his own business calculations, which it sounds like that you have an obligation to have a dead person stay overnight. Where we have to leave a dead person overnight, it's not enough if a dead person doesn't stay overnight. Says no, Ella, what we mean to say is what we mean to say is that there's going to be many people are going to die in the city that we have nowhere to bury, and they're going to leave the dead person in shul overnight. Again, that's a punishment because of that they made the cheshbainis. They're making their own business calculations in the shul, which is a kalas reish. It's a leichkeit. Again, you have to understand a basic knesset is Hashem's home, and you come in there and you start doing in front of His face all these things. It's not appropriate to do, and therefore that's awesome. We said in the Braisa also now you can't also get all dressed up in the shul. So Amarav says Chacham v'Talmidei mutar, but the Chacham and their students they're allowed to put on their tie and allowed to get dressed in shul. Because the Mishum Levi says my Beit Rabbanan. Why do they call the Batei Midrashas Beit Rabban the rabbi's house? Because it's based on the Rabbanan. Because that's their home for everything. That's where they live all day. You sit in Koil all day. It's you're allowed to put on your jacket and your sweater, and you could do these things because it's your home, and therefore it's permitted for them. Send the Braisa. You can't come into shul because it's hot outside, or because it's rainy and you need a place to stay dry. That's not a reason to allow you to go into shul. Now the Gemara brings a story. These two Talmidei Chacham, they were standing. They're asking a question for Rabba, and it started pouring cats and dogs. Started raining, very heavy. So Al Mei Kedisha, they went into the shul. They said they had to explain why they're doing this. This they were going into shul. It's not because of the rain that it should protect us from the rain. Because if we would not have been busy learning, we would not have gone in. Because like we said, it's forbidden now go into a shul to protect you from the rain. And it's very simple because when you're learning, you have to have a crystal clear thought process. That nothing should disturb you from how you're thinking. It has to be kiyem de istana, like the day of the north wind. Like when the north wind blows, which is called istana, it's a very clear, pleasant day. And that's how your brain has to be when you're learning. Someone sneezes, for example, and coughs in the middle of a shiur, it can be very disturbing. And because you lost that crystal clear thought process, and he'll get on the review. Oh, he's getting now. Okay, good. So he can't think so clearly, and therefore, that's why we came into shul in the middle when it was raining, because or else it throws us off, and we lost the whole cheshbon. Now, related discussion. Gemara says only Rav Acha the Rav Ravashi says if someone has to call a person from shul, what should he do? Because we said you're not going to shul unnecessarily. You can't come in for other ulterior motives. So what do? You have to come and call someone, but you're not allowed to. Shomalei says, I'll tell you what you do. Who, if he's a Talmudic scholar, say halacha. So you came in to learn. Vitanahu, if you're someone who learns Mishnayos, they must say a Mishnah. Vikaru, if someone who learns Chumash, they must say a pasuk of Chumash. Now, Viloi, let's say he doesn't know how to learn at all. So let him tell a child, because the children that used to learn over there in the shul, tell me your pasuk. So he came in to learn. Once he came in to learn, he could call the person. Or another approach is Nishi Purta Benekim, wait a little bit. You can fulfill the mitzvah of Asher Yeshve V'Secha, of sitting in Hashem's home. And then Benekim, then get up and then call the guy. But they have to do that first, and then you call him, and then it's not a problem. Now we said in the Braisa, Maspidman Hesped Shal Rabbim, that you're not allowed to make a levias in the shul, but if it's that of the Rabbim, so then you're allowed to. So it says, what's considered a public hesped? So Machmed Rav Chizda, he pointed, Kagoin Hesped the Koy Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes was always over there, and he pointed towards Rav Sheshes. Says, if, for example, if Levi has Rav Sheshes, if let's say someone of Rav Sheshes' family passes away, so then everyone's going to come, the Ganze Oilam Kimt, so then we need a big venue, then you're allowed to use a shul. And Machmed Rav Sheshes got back at him, and he pointed towards him, he says, Kagoin Hesped the Koy Rav Chizda. If let's say it's Levi and Rav Chizda's mishpucha, then also we would be able to make it in the shul. Now, Rafram, Aspedela Kalsa Bebekinisha, Rafram actually made a levaya for his daughter-in-law, the Shnia, in the shul. Amai says, because of the honor of me and of the one who died, because you have to think about it. People come to Levi for the one who passed away. They also come for the person who is also the mourner. So he says, for me and the daughter-in-law, so everyone's going to, the answer is going to come, the whole world's going to come, so therefore we're going to make it in the shul. Reb Zera, Reb Zera eulogized, he made a Levi for a certain rabbi in the shul. Amai says, because if they're coming from my honor, because I'm giving the hesped, so then we need a big venue. And the day, the misa, or because of the honor of that rabbi, either way, the whole world's going to come, and if it's a hesped shel rab, and therefore he said we're allowed to make it in the shul. Now, a related discussion, the Gemara says, Rish Lakish, Saftil hu tuvim mirabanan. Rish Lakish gave a hesped for a certain Talmud Chacham, the Shchich Barad Yisrael, that was always frequent in Eretz Yisrael. The Abatana Hilchasa, that he learned Mishnayos to the students, B'chavtal Shudase, with 24 rows of students. Amar, Rish Lakish said, oh, Yivai Chasra Ardi Yisrael Gaber Rabba, whoa, what a loss for Eretz Yisrael, such a great person that passed away. Now, on the other hand, Hahuda Habatani Hilchasa, there was a different Talmud Chacham that also learned Mishnayos, Sifra, Sifri, B'tei Sefta, all different types of brises on Chumashim and on Gemaras, B'shach when they passed away. So also Rav Nachman, they said to Rav Nachman, listen, they mar. We could let the master give a levaya for a hesped for such a big Talmud Chacham. He says, what should I say in the hesped? How should I eulogize him? Hide son of the Moli Sifra? What? Whoa, this bucket that was full of svarim, the chassid that's not here anymore? He's like a fool who just like a bucket full with svarim. He doesn't understand what's inside of it. Here also, I know he knew a lot of learning, but he never served the Talmud Chacham to really understand the reasoning of the Mishnayos. And sometimes you have Mishnayos that contradict each other. You have to resolve it, like Chacham Aiskinan or Hamani or Ploinihi or Chesur Mechsra. He doesn't even know what he was talking about. So he knew a lot of information, but he's like a svarim shrunk that had a lot of svarim on it, but he's like wood, you know. So what should I be maspid? So the Gemara says interestingly, Tanir Rish Lakish, that first says the Gemara, Tochazi, come and see Mabin Tekiva the Ardi Yisrael. What's the difference between the mighty ones of Eretz Yisrael? What do we mean? Rish Lakish, who we see when he gave a hesped, he's a meshabayach in his hesped, so grace is achin. Which the Gemara in Yoma, Daf Testament base tells us that even with Rabbi Babachana, who was a big Talmud Chacham, he wouldn't talk with him in the street, because whoever Rish Lakish spoke to in the street, they would give him a business deal on the spot. Rish Lakish speaks to you, you're a trustworthy person, so he's considered takifir. He spoke to him, he had Chachmas apart, so he wouldn't speak to you just like that. And still see how difference is the mighty ones of Eretz Yisrael, the Chasidi the Bavel, to the pious ones of Bavel, like Rav Nachman Yitzchak, hwho didn't give us such a hesped. He said, what can I say? What's the greatness of this person? He was from the Chasidi Bavel, like the Gemara says at the end of Saited Daf Memtezim Beis, that he said, don't teach that there's no Mayir Eschet because I'm still around. Because he was a real God-fearing person. So see, look how different they were in how they were maspid. That although Rish Lakish was a sharp mensch, but we see, Nebuch, what a Talmud Chacham is lost over here, and here Rav Nachman Yitzchak, who was such a varm Yeruschet. So Kenneth Zaken, what does he know already? Talmud Chacham is givein, veist asach, but epis gewiss, you know. So an interesting contrast the Gemara says. Now, related to the Megillah of a Talmud Chacham, which we're discussing over here, we're learning with the Mishnah Mesechtes Avos. The Mishnah says, whoever uses the crown of Torah, for his own personal usage, chalav, he's going to pass away from the world. So Tanir she explains what does that mean, using the crown of Torah. It means if you use someone who learned halachas, who's the kisser shel Torah, is the the crown of Torah. Who is the crown of the Torah? Is a Talmud Chacham, someone who learned halachas. And if you use such a person, that's ishtamish b'tagi, using the crown, he's the kesser, so cholav, a person passed away. Now, however, the Gemara says, Rama Uli says, l'shtamish inish b'man detani abba. Better a person should use a person who learned 4 out of the 6 Sidrei Mishnah, v'lo l'shtamish b'man demasne abba. Don't use someone who taught 4 Siddurim. In other words, someone who taught is at a greater level than someone who just learned. Now, the Gemara is a story related to this halacha, like Kihadid Rish Lakish. We said this teaching was Rish Lakish. He said you're not supposed to use someone who's a Talmud Chacham for your own personal usage. So Rish Lakish himself had a story. He's going on the road, and Matir Urkama Demaya, and he came to like a pond of water. So Asal Gabbat, a certain person came along, and Arkev Kasve, like sometimes you have these tornadoes and there's like water everywhere and you're trying to walk through. So this person came along, Arkev Kasve put Rish Lakish on his shoulder. He was taking him through the pond. So Amalei says, Karisa, Rish Lakish asked him, says, they're getting into this conversation. He's taking him across this pond. He says, Karisa, you can't learn Chumash? I'm like, yeah. He says, I read Chumash, yeah. Tanisa, learns Mishnah. He says, Tanina Arba Siddur Mishnah. He says, yeah, I already learned 4 out of the 6 Siddur Mishnah. I said, Amalei said to Pesaltalach Arba Tura, you carved out for yourself 4 pillars, Vitanis Bar Lakish Akazbach, and you're carrying Bar Lakish on your shoulder. Shadi Bar Lakish V'mai, throw Bar Lakish into the water. So Amalei says, yeah, but Nichali Dashmina Lamar. He says, I want to serve the master. And Rish Lakish didn't want to, because Rish Lakish's own teaching was, if you use a Talmud Chacham, you pass away. So he says, look, Ihachi, if that's the case, that you want to serve me, at least let you become my Talmud. And if someone is a Talmud, then it's a different relationship. He says, learn from me the following teaching of Zera, which actually, Zera actually is after Rish Lakish. But the Gemara is calling it a teaching of Reb Zera, because Reb Zera ultimately later would codify this, but it's a teaching Reb Zera in the future would say. But Nois Yisrael, the Jewish girls, they're stringent on themselves, even if they see a drop of menstrual blood, the size of a mustard seed, they sit for 7 clean days. They make sure that they have 7 clean days before they become tar. Which, as Rashi explains biblically, you don't have to have what our women do of Shiv Nikiyim. It's only if she saw 3 consecutive days within the 11 days of what we call the Yomei Ziva, between the Nida periods. But actually, in the beginning of her menstrual cycle, even if she sees for all 7 days and she stops right before the evening of the 7th day, she actually go to mikveh that night. But they were stringent on themselves, because not every woman is so proficient in what's called Pischei Nida, which is when does the period start, and where are they in that cycle if it's in the 11 days between Nidal and Nida. So therefore, they made any drop of blood that they see Dam Kecharga, which Taisa says that itself is actually not a chiddush of those women, because requiring Shiv Nikiyim of even seeing a drop of blood is explicit Mishnah elsewhere. It just means the halacha but the Shiv Nikiyim for that was a stringency. But then Rashi asks, he says, if you're going to say, well, why would they even do that? If you have 1 drop of blood, at least let it be for 3 consecutive days, because the only way possible to require Shiv Nikiyim is if you had a zava, if you had a flow for 3 consecutive days. Like it says, Yomim Rabim Lo Yes Nidasa. So it has to be plural of 3. So it's not even gemalt. It's not even feasible to have it. When would they ever require Shiv Nikiyim because of 1 drop of blood? So it says Rashi, yes. Sometimes it could happen that seeing 1 drop of blood 1 time, the size of a mustard seed, would actually require a woman, technically it's possible, to require 7 clean days. How so? So let's say she started counting, she was a Zava. She's counting 7 clean days, after she was already a bona fide Zava. So she counts 7 clean days. On day 7, she tells her husband, "Oi, I did a bedika, and I see there's this tiny, tiny drop of blood the size of a mustard seed. That will undo the whole Shiv Nikiyim. She has to go ahead and count now a new 7 clean days. So it's technically possible, although you're right, to become a Zava, you really need 3 days in a row. So why would 1 mustard seed, a size of dam, be a problem? Because if a woman didn't know, or her husband didn't understand, it was the 7th day, and then she sees, that could make you have to do over 7 days, so it's technically feasible. Or another way, says Rashi, is let's say she had a discharge 2 days, but she didn't know. And only now, today, did she see this mustard size, and that's 3 consecutive days, and it would require 7 Nikiyim if it was during the 11 days of Ziva. And therefore, they were stringent again. Anytime a woman sees a Tibus Am, she requires waiting 7 days. So that's what he taught him that. One last halacha, Tana Debei Eliyahu, which is related to this idea of halachas that we're talking about, of being a shoin halachas. So there's a well-known, we say in davening, Tana Eliyahu, kol shoin halachas, and some have the girsa b'chol yom. Whoever learns halachas, but it's actually not the girsa in our Gemara. Whoever learns halachas, muftu lo yishuv min ha'mabah, he's guaranteed to be, and that's what it actually sounds like. Actually, halachas, not even halachas, sounds like for Rashi, it's actually mishnayis. But be that as it may, he's a person of the world to come. So like it says the pasuk in Chavakuk, halichis oilimloi, the ways of the world are to him. Don't read it the ways. Halachas, read halachas, halachis oilimloi. If he learns halachas, then the world is to him, meaning he's a ben oilam haba. Thank you for any time for hosting us.